Hello and welcome to Analysing Avatar. Today we are taking a look at the, we're looking at Korra, we're looking at the sixth episode of the fourth book, Balance, and the 45th overall of the series, Chris. I thought you'd like to know that we've done 45 episodes of Korra at this point. Look, it was in front of me. I just said it. Just the information was there. So I said it out loud. I'm like Ron Burgundy with the teleprompter. Do you know what I mean? Like, whatever you put there, I'm going to say it.
It was just weird because I was just listening to, before we joined, I was listening to something. It was ARTV, which is a music YouTube channel. And the video was sponsored by Stats FM. Did a whole thing about Stats FM. But then 2 minutes later, you're like, it's the 45th episode. I'm like, fucking hell, is this sponsored by Stats FM? What's happening here?
Well, I've got news to break to you, Chris. We are, in fact, now sponsored by Stats FM for all your stats. Did you know that 75% of all stats are made up?
So I don't think that's what Stats FM is based on.
I don't know. Well, okay, I'm going to Google Stats FM. Let's do an actual...
I believe it basically pulls from your music and essentially gives you Spotify Wrapped all year round.
Okay. Yeah. Do you like Spotify Wrapped, but do you hate that it happens just once a year? Get Stats FM, some sort of app that globs onto your Spotify and tells you how much music you're listening to. Would you like to know what weird subgenres that Spotify have labeled the music you listen to is, and that you seem to listen to a lot of it? You find out Stats FM. There you go. Now they owe us money officially.
I don't think we're getting that money.
Stats.fm, formerly Spotistats.
Is that what it was? Formerly?
No, apparently so. Apparently, according to the internet. Anyway, look, we aren't sponsored by that service. I have no idea if that service is even safe to use. So I'm going to go ahead now and say that was very obviously a joke. Please don't actually get Stats FM without doing independent research on whether it's even, good. Do you know what I mean?
If anyone uses it, though, comment down below. Tell us whether we should consider it.
Yeah, 100%. All right. So this is
when we do season 4's list of feedback episode. And it's just like, right, quite a lot of people, Dan, have opinions on Stats FM. Let's talk about it.
Yeah, I think this is what happened. It was in season 2. We told people to comment with what they ate for breakfast, and we got tons of those. So maybe it'll be like that. I'm on board with that, by the way. Tell us your thoughts on Stats.fm. I have no idea. Anyway. This is the episode of Korra that we're going to be talking about today. It's called the Battle of Zaofu, and it is, of course, the episode in which the, I assume, assassination attempt, they use the words, take her out, which I think is cartoon villain speak for murder, but I don't know why the good guys would be saying that. But anyway, Suyin heads in with some folk to try and take out Kuvira. Kuvira is outsmarted them. She's all like, I knew you were gonna try that shit. It's a scam. I gotcha. And then she captures them. So then Korra's like, please give them back. And Kuvira's like, nah, don't feel like it. And then she's just like, fight me. So they have a little fight, and they have these rough terms for the fight where if Korra wins, she just has to basically go away. and Kuvira gets Zaofu, I guess. It's all very does Korra have the ability to just make that deal? I don't know, but what ends up happening is it all breaks out into a big fight. Korra and the gang lose, they escape, and Kuvira is left inexplicably in charge of the most impenetrable fortress in the Earth Kingdom. Because a bet, maybe? Unclear. Meanwhile, Varric and Bolin on the crazy train making weaponry. When Varric does a switcheroo, destroys all of his work, and just barely escapes with his life. I've also got questions about train logistics relating to that storyline, but we'll come back to it. But that's the general plot of the episode. It ends with sort of an Empire Strikes Back shtick where the good guys at the lowest point were sort of heading to the end of the second act, I guess. Kuvira has Zaofu. Korra's in the wind with the airbending children. It's not looking good for our plucky young heroes. How are you feeling, Chris?
I think it's really clear what happens at the, why why they lose at the end of the battle, and it's budget constraints of the season, Dan. Like, because this isn't necessarily a criticism. It's not a big epic battle. It's the massive army run towards them. There's a lot of wind. Twisters has just come out. There's some Twisters action. And
for listeners, we record these in advance. For us, back in July of 2024, the movie Twisters is just released, and we're very excited about it, and definitely not more excited about the upcoming release of Deadpool and Wolverine.
Yeah, oh yeah, it's all about Twisters. Yeah, they added an S, mate. They did it. They did the thing.
Yeah, and I'm pretty sure they had to be very careful not to make the S a dollar sign on the poster, just temptation, you know. Yeah.
Have you heard that Kevin Smith's going to do a sequel to Tusks, and he's actually going to use a dollar sign?
That's amazing. Please, I hope that's true. I want that so much. I want that more than anything in the world. Like, I don't even know if I'd watch the movie, but I want that movie to exist. Does that make sense? Yeah. I genuinely don't care if that movie ends up in front of my eyes or not, but I want to live in a world where someone finally commits to that S into the dollar sign joke for one of those sequel movies that uses the pluralization. So yes.
Yeah. Absolutely.
Out of curiosity, did that movie do any well? Did people actually go and see Twisters?
I don't know. I've not seen Twister, but
you've not seen Twister? Really oh, mate, we just did a Rewind Reviews where we talked about what were the big crazy, like, can't believe we've not gotten to that yet, and we didn't talk about Twister, and we should have.
Yeah, no, I haven't never seen it, but I just really respect they added the S. That really made me. When I watched that trailer, and I was like, "What's going on here?" And then it became apparent it was Twisters. I laughed a lot. And then got annoyed with myself because I didn't recognise Daisy Edgar Jones, and it was just purely because they've dyed her hair blonde. And I was like, that's not good. I should have realised it was her.
It doesn't look like it's done brilliantly. I don't know when it opened, so it might have time to still recoup this. But it's made 124 million worldwide. Its budget was 200 million.
I don't think it's that new, but it's about to get trounced by Deadpool and Wolverine, so
yeah, because even if Deadpool and Wolverine turns out to be a dreadful movie, which, you know, who knows at this point, right? It could be. I'm hoping it's going to be good. I'm excited to see it, but, like, you never know, right? It's always a flip of the coin with these sorts of movies, whether they disappoint and expectations are too high, or people are expecting it to be a different movie than it is, blah blah blah, but whatever. It'll trounce it no matter what happens. That's for sure. So yeah, if it hasn't made its budget back yet, it's probably not going to. So that's a shame for the sure lovely team that worked diligently to make Twisters a fun movie. I've not seen it. I'm sure it's great. But like, yeah, that is actually quite sad because like 124 million worldwide when you spent 200 million to make the movie, not including the 150 million you will have spent marketing it. That's a yikes right there. That's like a big yikes. Yeah. Do you think that changes things with good old Glenn Powell? Oh, we're talking about this. No one's going to care about this stuff in like 10 weeks when this actually airs. But Glenn Powell is like the hot actor at the moment. But if he's in a big flop, do you think that lowers his Hollywood cachet? He's no longer going to be the boy of the moment.
It's one of those things where sometimes it can. Like, look at old the Australian fella, Jai Courtney. It's sort of a series of flops sort of lessened his moment, didn't it? But then there are other actors that seem to just survive, and you're like, they haven't actually had a big hit. Like, what's happening here? Yeah. But going back to Korra. Yes. So yeah, it felt like budget constraints. It felt like we can't animate a big battle where the whole city rises up to defend it, which you think is, you know, logically what would happen. They literally make an announcement, and then seemingly the whole city is like happy with it just being these three people that come forward. So even though, you know, when they're all captured, there are a few that, you know, seem ready to fight and stuff. So. Yeah, it seems like that, but
it's just a failure to deliver on the promise of the episode, I think. Like, the episode is called The Battle of Zaofu, and there is a battle near Zaofu between two people. You know, like it's the fight outside of Zaofu.
Yeah.
It's like, and I'm not saying like I don't think you can use the budget defense when they set it up and called it that, because they are the ones who've created the promise of what this should be, right? Like, we talked the last couple of weeks about the excitement and the tension of this scenario, right? There's so much drama in essentially the good guys having to sort of like talk down a despot that's got all this power and it not leading to bloodshed, even though Kuvira seems so determined for it to lead to bloodshed. And I think maybe the thinking, and I don't think this is how it's ended up playing out, was, oh, we're showing that it's a more mature show and a more mature cast. They chose to bail out rather than continue to fight and get people hurt. And that might very well be what they were going for. But I think what you ultimately end up doing when you pull the plot together the way this brought it together, and I'm going to come out and say that I don't love this episode at all. In fact, I would say this is my least favorite episode of the season so far, for a myriad of reasons we'll get to. But on the bigger point, the wider point of this episode just simply not delivering, I think you just need to be, if you're going for that route, you need to set it up differently. You can't set it up with the teases and this is where it's going, and then pull the rug. You've raised the question, you need to answer it. You know what I mean? Like, you've created that tension. Now you have to like snap the string, so to speak. Do you know what I mean? Like, they weren't bullied into this. This was the plotline they chose to do. If they wanted to do a smaller scale season for budget reasons, do a smaller scale season with lower stakes. Don't create a storyline that requires stakes. So yeah, very, very frustrating. And I also just think logically, like, I need to look through the dialogue again. I genuinely finished the episode confused as to why Kuvira just took the city. Like, I didn't understand. This is a city that was established, is the most, like, defensible, protected city in, like, the Earth Kingdom, maybe on the planet, like, you know, the whole world of Avatar. It's got these big metal domes. You can't get into them, so they could just hunker down. It'd be a siege, right? It'd be like the Ba Sing Se thing from Iroh's days as a general, where they were just besieging it and they couldn't get in. They're just outside of it. They can't actually get in to take it. Instead, the episode just ends with like Korra and the Airbender kids. They just bail, and then we just kind of like cut to Kuvira inside, and everyone's bowing. And I'm like, "But why'd you open the door? Like, did I miss something?" And I'm looking back to see if maybe there was some sort of thing where Korra like said, "You can take it if you beat me." But if that's the case, on whose authority did she say that? And why did they just agree? Like, Kuvira knocks on the door and they go, "Who's there?" And it's like, "Kuvira, here to take you over. I'm going to deal with Korra," and she lost. I'd be like, "Well, I'm sorry. No. Door's still closed. Thank you. Goodbye."
Yeah, especially...
Like, I'm very confused as to what happened in these episodes. Is it just because Kuvira captured their leader? Like Su Yin, is that what happened? The episode, either I missed it or the episode didn't make it very clear. And I'm not 100% sure which, and if you guys want to get in the comments and tell me I just missed the obvious explanations for this stuff, please. But I definitely did. Did you pick up on anything that makes sense of any of this, Chris?
No, and you are right. Like, when I think about it, it's, you know, when we've seen that city before, it's a city that would have precautions. It's a city that would have backups. It's a city that...
defenses.
You know, yeah, but unless it's maybe that, you know, it isn't a villain of a traditional nature. Do you know what I mean? It's almost a political villain. The general population wouldn't know that actually she's, you know, an out-and-out villain and a bad guy until maybe, you know, she's lined up in front. But even then, you know, that even that's weird. They're not playing on that. They're presenting her as if she's, you know, she's Voldemorting, sorry, he who must not be named, you know, in threats across the land.
It's she who must not be named.
It's who? It's what?
I think these days it's just going to be she who must not be named.
Oh, because
she and the franchise she created must not be named. I don't hear about that shit ever again.
You know, announcing intentions across a tannoy, which even in itself is weird, because it's like, I thought there was meant to be to everyone else, isn't there meant to be grey area with her? Not, not just, oh no, she's a proper villain now. Like, we don't even need convincing. Like, that's bizarre as well. Like, and that would make sense of how she gets in, but that's not how she's played across the episode. She's literally threatening them over Tannoy. Like, is there not people there that are like, huh? Oh, she was one of us. What's happening here?
Yeah, I mean, I'm just looking back through the dialogue, and the deal she seems to make with Korra is that if she wins, Korra stays out of her business going forward. She says, you're not relevant here anymore. After I beat you, I want you out of my business for good. I'm the one who brought peace to the Earth Empire, not you. You're not relevant here anymore. And Korra's like, fine, you want to fight the Avatar? Let's finish this. And they start doing a very, very boring fight, which we'll get to.
But even that, Korra's got no authority, right? That's like, this is gonna get nerdy. That's like Iron Man going to Wakanda and being like, and meeting up with Thanos and being like, I'll do you a deal. People of Wakanda going, what? Like, I know you're a superhero, but you've not got the authority here. What's
but
again,
there doesn't even seem to be that. It's literally just, she's just like, I'm not going to let you take the city. So it's just like, Korra's like, I'm going to stand in your way, and Kuvira like, no, you're not. And then they agree to fight, and if they fight, Korra goes away. The actual how she then takes the city is like just glossed over. There's not even a deal. I gave the episode more credit than it actually even deserves by suggesting I'd missed dialogue that there was a deal to explain why she just marched into Zaofu and why Zaofu just surrendered, but apparently they just did. And I'm gonna guess that if you were to ask the writers, they would say because Kuvira had already captured Su Yin, the leader, so without leadership they just sort of, without the leader they toppled. But like, again, it has defenses. I don't know. It just feels... even if that is the explanation, the episode does not make that clear. On a wider perspective, I don't really understand how the episode got to where it got to. I would have liked it better if you wanted to do it without bloodshed. What if the end of this is, like, the ultimatum for Korra is, after she's been beat, you either need to step aside right now, or there's going to be bloodshed. And Korra leaving is sort of opening the door for Kuvira, but she's making that choice very deliberately because she knows there's, two armies about to fight, and she's choosing to lose this battle to save the lives of the people inside there. But they don't, even if that is what is happening subtextually, they need to make that the text, like, before Korra bails. Like, it's...
I didn't even think that.
Again, it's kind of there, but it's not.
Yeah, that would work. But also, or you could just not have a deal. She fights Su Lin. Su Lin loses. She fights Korra. Korra loses. They have to run away because Korra's weak, which they make a thing of. They're like, "What's happened? I thought the poison was gone." Da 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 da. So they're like, "Well, we've got no choice but to take her." And they have a discussion of, but now they're going to attack the city. And it's like, yeah, they are, but we have no choice. We have to get away here for the long good or whatever. And then we just cut to the city. If you don't have the budget to see the battle, we just cut to the battle being over and the city's lost.
Yeah, I mean, I think there are multiple ways to have done this that would have been clear, and this tried to like skirt over it in a way that was not satisfying to me, I think, because the deal Korra made had nothing to do with the city. It was just she'd get out of Kuvira's way and business if she lost. The city itself is a separate issue, and I just think like they just skirted over it, and they were just like hoping you would fansplain it away as a viewer as just, I don't know, something to do with the fact that they already captured Su Yin, or something to do with the fact there was no one left to defend them now Korra was gone, or, they just bent to Kuvira. And it's so, what's really frustrating about this as well? Like, I just watched an episode of One Piece that had the most amazing dethroning of a leader storyline I've ever witnessed. Like, they were flashbacks to, like, how this place that they're visiting got into the hands of a pretty villainous character. And the way the city was taken, and I'm not going to spoil it here, but it was so clever. It was so clever because what he did was he tricked the people into thinking their king had betrayed them, and they ousted their own king. Like, that's the wide of it. Like, I'm not going to get into the details. I don't want to spoil the show. But, like, it was so satisfying to watch. And then I switched this on, and it was like, we have the city now, lol. Like, I was just like, oh, no. Like, I don't know. It was just nothing about this was satisfying to me. And then on top of that, the fight was absolute dog shit. I'm sorry. I'm so sorry. What a dreadful fight. It was sad to watch for Korra, and that was the point. But the lack of creativity in the fight, it was just Korra lunging and lunging and lunging. And again, I know that's the point. I understand we're showing Korra isn't got that creative spark in her fighting anymore. And it was so long. You only make a fight that long. You only make a fight that long if you want it to be entertaining in and of itself, right? And it wasn't. It was not entertaining in and of itself. I was bored every time it was on screen because it was just the same 3 beats over and over again. Korra lunges, Kuvira dodges, Kuvira uses her bending to trip Korra onto the ground in some way and slightly humiliate her. And it was that times 15. Like, I get it doing it a couple of times, and I know that the longer you do it, the more sadistic it makes Kuvira look. I get that. I do. I understand you're making Kuvira look like this is about ego now more than uniting the Earth Kingdom. I get that. But you don't need to do it this many times to make that point. Neither do you need to do it that many times to show us that Korra is no longer up to this challenge. I'm glad they've chosen to make Korra still not herself. Because as we talked about in the episode where she got the metal out of her blood, if that's just the end of it and she's superhero again and like good at everything again, it's going to feel cheap because she doesn't feel like she earned that. We've still got room for Korra to earn it with character growth this season. I'm on board. Thumbs up. But the execution of this fight, dreadful. It just went on way too long, and it was the same beats over and over again. It drove me crazy. Like, I was actually like, yeah, it's only a 20-minute episode. You bore me in 20 minutes, you've really fucked up. Like, you've really fucked up. I was itching for the next Bolin and Varric scene.
Yeah, and even then, there's not many of them, like, as subplots go. I did think that whilst watching it. I was like, compared to how this show has juggled storylines in the past, we've had episodes with, like, 4 stories going on at once. I was like, this isn't particularly even. There's one other plot, and we're not even cutting to it that much.
No, it was good though. I mean, the Varric Bolin stuff is the highlight of this episode. It's basically
so what's your train? What's your train logic questions then?
Oh yeah, okay, right. So there's 2 locations, right, on this track that we know of, right, and maybe there's more, and the train track diverges in different ways, and you can cut around stuff. I don't know, but the knowledge we have is that the Zaofu, right, and the train is got not even Zaofu, like wherever they started, it was near Zaofu, wasn't it? Because the train obviously doesn't go straight to Zaofu because they didn't have Zaofu yet. But wherever they were stationed, the train runs from there to the camp, the re-education camps, and on that train they had Varric and Bolin doing the experiment stuff. Varric very cleverly decides to turn the spirit vines into a bomb that's going to destroy his entire research and stop it from falling into the wrong hands. Great storyline. Eventually, they detach the car, they go ahead, and then he blows up the car he is in with the spirit vine research and all of the pieces of spirit vine that he had with it. And obviously he and Bolin escape. But when that car blows up, right, it blows up between where they are and where they started. And yet, Boring McBoringface from Zaofu, Suyin's son, the one that's with Kuvira, was like, we're heading back to Zaofu. And I'm like, how? The train track behind you just got blown up with a car on it. You can't take the train backwards now. Also, this is one straight line of track. How are you turning the train around? Let's just assume the train can do reverse. You still don't have track behind you anymore. How are you going back to Zaofu?
Well, maybe there's an alternative. That there's multiple train lines, maybe. Tracks. They've
built a network. They've built like a big, complicated, London Underground style network. They just got to catch the Jubilee line instead because the Northern line's out today. Is that what you're telling me?
Not. Yeah, I guess. Yeah, but maybe not as simple as that. It's more like a nationwide thing. Do you know what I mean? There's not necessarily one track to take you from A to B.
So wait, What you're
But
telling me is
equally-
they're in the middle of the desert, and he goes, we're going to head back to Zaofu, and the guy next to him, what we didn't see off camera, was like, okay, so we're going to have to continue on to the camp first, finish this route, then we'll have to mount a train on the other line heading to such a city, then we can divert it along and rejoin with the track, about 40 miles out from Zaofu. Like, you think there was that sort of a situation?
Yeah, that's exactly what I think, Dan. Or maybe they got there via alternative transportation. You know, there's less to carry now. You don't have all that spirit vines anymore. You can hop on a bison if you've got one now. You know.
Yeah, I doubt that metalbenders have bison, but I take your point. There are other ways to travel. I did wonder, one thing I did wonder, because I did have this criticism, and Nadia was like, yeah, but the train and the track are made out of metal, and they're metal benders. So I guess, like, could they just put it together quickly? Could they reassemble? You know, could they clean up from the explosion and repair the track quickish? I don't know.
It's a pretty big crater as well, though, isn't it?
It was pretty big
right.
crater.
Like, that's in the way.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. They're definitely not going back the way they came, or if they are, they're not doing it easily. That's for sure. Yeah, 100%.
And where are Marco and Bolin gonna head? Like, are they also gonna go back to Zaofu, or seemingly?
Bolin and Varric. Good question.
Yeah.
Good question. I don't know. I guess we'll find that out next week. But I really like that plot. Like, on the whole, I really enjoyed Varric. Using his smarts for good, because seeing him outsmart Team Avatar a bunch of times in the past, it's just nice to have him sort of on their side for once. Like, it's really fun to see him like outsmarting the villain in this way. Like, I really liked that. And it's funny, they really set it up neatly. There's the bit where is it Balto, the son of Suyin, whose name I always forget, because he's one of those characters. He just needs to wear like a funny hat or get a catchphrase or something, because I always forget who he is and what his deal is, because he's so fucking bland. I think it's Balto. Is it Balto?
No, I've got no idea.
Bato. Oh no, Bato is a character from the first series. Christ, oh man, that's gonna kill me. I'm gonna find his name. It's got to be in the credits here somewhere, right? One second. I've got it on Wikipedia. Starring all these people. Batar. There you go. Batar Jr. Get a catchphrase, dude. Just get a funky haircut or a jaunty hat or a catchphrase so I know who the fuck you are. Anyway, sorry. I'm feeling sassy today. You might have figured it out. I didn't love this episode.
It's all good. I've enjoyed it.
I've not been this sassy about Korra for a while. Season 2 levels nearly. So Batar Jr. There's this bit when he's like, "Oh, I don't understand. It almost looks like you're having the energy go back into the spirit vine." Like, I like they set up that he's smart enough to be kind of starting to suss out that something about what Varric has built doesn't quite make sense to him, and I like that because that's a really good. There's two things. One, it's a nice hint of where the story is going for this week. You know, Varric betraying them and blowing it all up, and it also then means when he says it's now a bomb, you believe him and you understand how he's done it. He's redirecting that energy back into the thing that it was originally contained in. You know, potentially two great forces meeting, go boom. There's certain logic to it. So it sort of acts as an early explanation of everything you don't know is even happening yet. And then it also means that when you get to the end of the episode and catchphrase is all like, I'm going to build my own spirit vine weapon. I think I saw enough of the technology. You believe him because you really did get the sense he was starting to figure it out. So it's kind of done two things at once. So it's like, again, one of the best parts of this episode is this storyline. It makes a lot of sense. And I'm a little terrified of what Kuvira could do with a weapon like this because the Chris's analogy from last week of it being sort of a facsimile for the atomic bomb and the discovery of the atomic bomb really ringing true this week for two reasons. One, just the visual of it going off. Unique and Korra and sort of science fiction-y as it was, big purple explosion or whatever. It still very much had the vibe of that, especially looking at the sort of dust cloud from the distance, so to speak. But also, this week they had that argument of the genie's out the bottle, so to speak, and it was the same sort of logic that was used once they started realizing what could be done with the atom bombs, the hydrogen bombs, like they used to say, like, "Whoa, we've sort of discovered this now. We sort of have to make it because if we don't, our enemies will, and they'll use it." Like, and everyone used that logic to make theirs, and like. It's just really interesting that that's how we ended up in this situation, and it's the same thing here. So again, very, very clear lineage to real world events there. But yeah, like I said, one of my favorite parts of the episode. Did you? I'm sorry, I've talked a lot in a row there. How did you feel about that sort of side of the story, the Bolin and Varric stuff?
I'll tell you now. I don't think Julie's a bad guy. Still, I know that's not specifically Varric and Bolin, but it's part of this storyline. I don't think she's. I think she's going to sabotage as well. She's not transferred Dan. She doesn't look happy about anything. She said sorry when she was involved in the trick, to capture them. Nah, and there's enough sort of Varric missing her as well. That I'm like they're doing some Varric Julie stuff, which I'm into.
Because you were undecided on that last week. How are you feeling about that now? If that is what you think this is leaning towards,
I think if they do Varric redemption, if they do Varric, I think I might just called him Derek. Apologies,
I love that.
I did.
Derek. I like Derek. I like Derek.
If they do Derek redemption. And Derek, says sorry or shows that they're going to be equal partners or something. Have to do a lot to make you believe that. But I'd be down for that if they do that. That's fine. I think Bolin and Varric had great chemistry, and the way that how Bolin didn't see that Varric was like, no, don't worry, I've got a plan.
It was not subtle. It was so obvious. Like I remember
how they
we
didn't
reviewed
see that.
We reviewed on Rewind Reviews the third of the Star Wars prequels, and I talked about how unsubtle Palpatine was, and he's like, you can't learn that from the Jedi, wink wink, you mean the other side, wink wink, and then Anakin later in the movie's like, wait a minute, you're a Sith? And we were like, dude, come on, he was telling you. He was making it real clear. He was getting tired of your dumbass not picking up on the hints. I feel like we did the same thing here with Varric and Bolin. Like, he was really like, I've got a plan. Trust me. Like almost like obviously stomping on his foot in front of Balto, whatever he's called. No, not Balto, Batar. Catchphrase. I'm just going to start calling him Catchphrase because that's what he needs. He's just stamping on like Bolin's foot like, don't look, Catchphrase Sue. Yeah, it was bad, but it was funny. Very funny. It is a good dynamic they've developed between those two.
Yeah, I thought the dialogue between them was really funny. Like, I love one of my favourite jokes in the episode was like, I do not know how Julie stayed with you for so long.
Yes. Yeah. No, all my favourite stuff in this episode was the comedy from those two. Was great.
You're wrong, Dan. There is one amazing joke happening with the other plot. There is one amazing joke attached to the taking of Barcay.
Are we about to do our favourite segment? Dan and Chris repeat jokes they liked from the episode.
No, because I couldn't even repeat it because it's a visual gag. It's the paintings. The paintings is a fucking
That's
excellent
so good.
joke.
The paintings is brilliant. A perfect joke.
It's just so for those that don't remember.
So good.
What's their name?
Iki and Milo.
Iki and Farty McFartson are both doing paintings, and Iki's is like a child's drawing. Basically, it's very scattered. It's all over the place, and the guy looking at it is like, "It's amazing. I love how I can see right into your soul." And then Farty McFartson's is basically like a 3D
masterpiece. Like it's like this beautiful like. It's this incredibly detailed, hyper-realistic painting of himself as like a general. I think like he's wearing like a cape and looking all noble. It's like the painting you'd get like commissioned for like a leader. It's really good.
And he's just like, and the guy's just like, no, but I want to see you. Like, I want you to tell me something. It's so good. It's so good. So yeah, that's
You're right.
So there's moments of good humour throughout. That scene, and especially between Bolin and Varric. The whole right, okay, stop it. No, it's actually a bomb. What?
Yeah, I wrote a couple down. You couldn't find a wolf bat if one built a nest in your butt or something like that, he said. And then then he's like, wolf bats don't even build nests because catchphrase is the most boring man on the planet. And he replies, well, you got me there, Dr. Science, which I thought was great. I thought that was so funny. I also liked it when he did the whole, he tried turning Julie into a what do you call it? Oh, my brain has died on me. When he's like, he verricked himself because some girl Julie'd him.
Yeah, I enjoyed that too.
It's so good. There's so much good dialogue in this episode from those two, particularly. But yeah, that painting gag is amazing. Yeah.
Here's a question, Dan.
Yeah.
Where's Marco at? The actor that plays Marco got the script for this season and was like, oh, okay, fine. Like, often this show will cut between plots, but I feel like he's been on the sidelines for quite a few episodes now.
I like to think that he read the script for this episode and then had to go back and double check he hadn't died without him noticing in the previous script. Did I miss my death? Because I'm not in like 3 episodes in a row here. Yeah.
We had a little Asami the other week, but no Marco.
I'll be honest with you, like, it is funny to make jokes about, but, like, realistically, it's a big cast. I'm okay any week with them selecting a character that's doing something different and being like, you're just not relevant this week. Like, we can't fit you in, so we're not going to force it. Like, I absolutely respect the choice to just go, there's no place for him in this story, so we'll save him for later in the season when we actually have something for him to do, rather than what they were doing instead of season 1 and 2, which is always finding something for everyone to do, regardless of whether that wasn't needed.
Yeah, but it does feel like quite a big gap. You know, we're not quite at justice for Marco levels yet. The character's not been as mistreated as Asami, but yeah, it's we've not had him for a while.
I think this is either the second episode he's not been in or the third. But it's adding up. I don't disagree. But again, I'm okay with that if they don't have something for him. Like, I'm just kind of like, I'm just in a position where I'm just kind of, how we got so burnt with characters being forced into plots they weren't just to keep them around in previous seasons of the show that I'm just like, fine. If you've got nothing for him, I would much rather he was just off being a cop or being the guardian for that kid. You know, the Prince Wu. Like, I can totally accept he's just doing that right now, and then we can come back to him later. It is a shame because he's one of the gang. We like to see what he's up to, but I can fill it in, I think. Yeah. How did we feel?
I thought
Oh, go on.
I was just going to say a small note. I thought the manipulation of Bolin's off doing something greater was really good. I thought I really enjoyed the fact that. Yeah, I really liked the manipulation of he's still on our side, even though he's obviously not at this point.
Yeah, so for those who don't remember, Opal sort of challenges Kuvira and is like, there's no way Bolin's okay with what you're doing right now. And she's like, no, he's very much on our side. He's doing tasks for me right now related to this very thing. He's definitely on our side and not been captured and sent to a re-education camp. So Kuvira did a whole thing. It was really good. Yeah, you're right. It made Kuvira seem extra evil. I feel like that's a really great way to, like, make the audience, like, you know, hate a villain. I don't know if you can hear all the chirping. My balcony has been visited by a lot of birds while we're talking. I don't know if you've been able to hear them, Chris. They're quieting down now. Hopefully they'll stay quiet.
No, I can't. No.
It's lovely rainbow lorikeets, but they are the noisiest bird. My neighbours kind of hate me, I think, because we started feeding them and now they come every day. They are really loud. They yell at each other a lot.
He's moved over. He's moved over here just to become some crazy bird man.
To be fair, 13 of them just landed on my I think 13, maybe 14, have just landed on my.
No one would have guessed that when you moved on my Dan moves to Australia bingo card, you slowly transforming yourself into the woman from Home Alone 2 was not on there. But I'm pleased to see it happening.
Well, I think if you look up. If anyone listening wants to understand how that's happened, Google rainbow lorikeet and tell me that's not the most adorable thing you've ever seen in your life. Yeah. That's all I will challenge listeners to do. That's where I would stand on that. Anyway, I dare not do anything to disturb them because they will make loads of noise. But there is food out there, so that should keep them quiet. Anyway, Yeah, the Opal thing was very good. Had we moved on from that, or was that last thing we were talking about before I got distracted?
Yeah, what were you going to say?
Oh, yeah, so I have a question for you about the opening of this episode and Su Yin's plot. So, last week, you were quite confident. No, she's just got to talk to her. And I thought about it a lot, actually, that conversation. Because you weren't wrong at all to think that's what might be happening, on the grounds that she's the good guy. She's not supposed to be doing underhanded tactics like that. That's bad guy behavior. So your instinct was just to assume the show was going to characterize Su Yin's choices as the good guy choices, and the good guys do the noble thing. They fight your face on. They don't sneak up on you in the night to try and murder you, and they don't cheat, and they don't if they're going to face you, they're going to face you head on, and they're going to try and solve it with words. That's good guy stuff. So I understand so much your instincts to be like, oh, I'm assuming she's just going to go talk to her. When we started watching it this week, it really struck me the problem, though, that this creates, because it made Kuvira correct at the beginning of this episode, like almost immediately. So Su Yin sneaks in, and Kuvira, who's like anticipated this move somehow and traps Su Yin, is like, yeah, that was a cowardly move. Like you were a coward when you.
It just quickly, it doesn't just make her correct, which is a problem. It also makes Korra wrong, which is also a problem.
Right. Well, I'd like to explore that. What do you mean by that? I'm curious.
Well, Korra's like, I'll talk to her. It'll be fine. And like, no, like she's gonna force you to fight, and then you'll have to fight, and Korra goes back on that and has to fight her pretty quickly and all that sort of stuff. So yeah,
right, exactly. Yeah, I think it's really interesting that. Yes, I just think it's really interesting that Su Yin goes in to do this, and Kuvira basically points out, "You're being cowardly. Like this is a cowardly move. This is not the move of a hero." Like and I guess maybe the thinking from the writing team was this is how far the heroes have had to stoop because how desperate the situation is. But I don't think they've done enough for me to feel like if last episode had ended with the first acts of war, right? Like war has broken out now, and outside of these metal domes, soldiers were now coming together and people were dying, and Su Yin was like, my people are dying, I have to do something. You'd go, oh, the plot is we've driven a good character to bad deeds through desperate times. But because they didn't do that, and because there was a truce, there was an agreement that there wouldn't be combat for 24 hours until Su Yin decided what she wanted to do. Her choosing to break that's the bad guy stuff. And I thought that was really weird, and I'm not sure they quite earned. My assumption is they were going for, this is how desperate the situation is, but I don't feel like they ended up convincing me enough of that to get away with it, and I've just found myself questioning the morality of one of the good guys. Does that make sense?
Yeah, it does make sense, absolutely.
Because
I think
calling her a coward is correct. Like, it is a cowardly move.
Yeah, it was just so assassin. I think the animation of it all and stuff. It was like, you know what I mean? They might as well have been like the way they were dressed. They might as well have been wearing signs that were like assassination. Like it was like, oh, okay. Like you really, I'm watching.
They had hit squad written on the back of their flak jackets.
Yeah. It might as well have. Like I was watching it, going, "Oh no, that's definitely an assassination attempt." That's what's happening here.
Yeah, it's really interesting. Kuvira and Korra kind of like when they talk about what Su Yin's up to, they are right. The tactics of that villain, she breached the truce. She tried to assassinate a political rival, which is obviously not okay. And again, her language. She says they're going to take her out. It's definitely an assassination attempt. The episode is not subtle about that. So yeah, really, really interesting, and I don't know how that's gonna play out going forward. And look, here's the thing: some of the issues we talked about with this episode could potentially be smoothed out as the season goes on, for sure, right? Because like we were a little concerned about them giving Korra a magic fix for her. She ain't got a groove back yet, but it turns out she still hasn't got her groove back, so that's still in play, right? So that story hasn't concluded yet, so there's more to do with that. So criticisms of the episode for not necessarily wrapping that up as well as we'd hoped aren't as valid, because clearly they're still going forward with it. Still an issue with, like, why would you choose to have her, like, heroically get the metal out if that's not the end of that story? Just for a dramatic moment, I guess. I don't know. Feels a bit worthless now, considering it hasn't really helped her at all. But anyway, there's a different criticism maybe now, but the criticism we originally had now valid. So maybe next week we are going to explore the desperation of Suyin and why she made these choices, and that's going to be really interesting, and we'll be eating our words. But for where I'm standing right now, it's a weird way to characterize a character that has historically been relatively moral. I mean, even her choice to not lead the rest of the Earth Kingdom was a moral choice. No, not everyone is suited to power. I don't think, you know, I'm not going to be the one to sort of force the rest of this world to be one. Like, that's not my place. I think that was, you know, that in a way that's a moral choice. I don't want the power. You know, anyone refusing power when it's offered to them is making a pretty selfless choice, right? That you really have to remove your ego to refuse power handed to you. So, like, we did that with her, and we've made her that. So yeah, to do this just feels like we're going backwards on ourselves. I don't know. Maybe I'm talking myself in circles here. I didn't love it. That's my point.
No, I agree. I think that makes sense, and I also agree with what you just said about Korra. It feels like we're gonna, because the problem is the way the writing's panned out over recent episodes. I'm just like, are you gonna do something different with Korra, or are you gonna do the same idea again? Are you gonna, you know what I mean? Are you actually gonna do the you know, I need to get over this emotionally storyline, but just I don't want to see a storyline you didn't execute well a few episodes. Even if you execute it better, it's still not overly satisfying to just see it again, but executed better.
Yeah, and I think that's what's interesting is, like, it might if I didn't know any better, I would almost suggest the writers are sort of playing with us, and, like, they know what our expectations are, because in previous seasons Korra has had easy answers, and the point of this was there are no easy answers. She's got to work on herself. It's not going to be as simple as here's the magic juice or the magic MacGuffin that's going to fix you. Like, she's going to have to put the work in this time, and maybe the idea, not what I'm really witnessing on screen, but maybe the idea is she thought she had an easy answer. She got the metal out. Great, I'm fixed. Went to fight Kuvira. Oh no, that didn't resolve the actual issue, and now she's going to have to go away and have a think. And if they make that very clear and they spell that out a bit cleanly in the next couple episodes, I will be a lot happier with the choice. But as it stands right now, I don't necessarily, my trust in that they're going to do that is, like, a little wobbly right now. I don't know, but because that on paper, that's a great idea. Like, the idea that they know. I mean, we had that comment last week. I don't have the commenter or the thing, but they were, to summarize, they were sort of saying, like, oh, a lot of the time, or maybe it was a couple weeks ago, a lot of the time Korra had the answers sort of, like, handed to her. Like, oh, I can't airbend, now I suddenly can. Oh, I can't get over this element, now I suddenly can. Like, a lot, she did often skip from the beginning of her arc to the end of her arc with very little in between, out of nowhere. And sometimes with a cursory attempt to try and explain it in dialogue, but very rarely, or it would be very feeble, or it would just be kind of like, yeah, it was a desperate moment. She had to dig deep and figure it out, you know. Spirit harder, you know. And maybe they were almost aware of that, and it was almost like they did the metal thing as sort of like an analogy for that way that the character had been written previously, but I do know better. I don't know that. I don't think that is what they were doing. I'd love to say that's what it was, but I don't believe they're playing that level of 3D chess here. But I do think it's possible they were going for the whole there are no easy answers, and Korra's assumption that she was better was part of the problem here. You know, the poison's gone, her demon's on, and that's cool. You're gonna have to make it clearer though. Because right now I'm making that up. I'm doing a lot of the legwork to get to that idea.
Yeah.
From what I'm seeing.
Yeah, for
We're
sure.
gonna have to have Korra learn that.
Yeah, which you shouldn't have to do.
No. You didn't talk too much about the fight. I rambled on about the fight for ages. Did you feel the same way about the fight, that it just wasn't very entertaining?
Yeah. I couldn't pinpoint what, in a way, but I think it was that sort of weird middle ground of she wasn't outright getting, you know, it's not like when we first see her, Korra, this season, and, you know, she's in the pits and she's really getting destroyed. It wasn't quite that, but equally it wasn't the opposite of that either. So it was just sort of this, it just wasn't particularly inventive. It just wasn't particularly. It was almost like it was almost like when there's lots of benders fighting and we're concentrating on our main hero and villain fighting, and there's another fight going on in the background. It was almost like it was that background fight, and that could be the point. That could, like you say, there are themes around that of her not fighting well and all that sort of stuff. But it's just a bit weird. It was just a little. I hate to sound, this word is harsher than I mean it to sound, but it was just a little unimaginative, I think.
Yeah, and I think I think the problem was, even when it looked like she wasn't doing so terribly, Kuvira had a smirk that just made it look like she was just toying with her. And that, if Kuvira had wanted to, that fight to be super one-sided and quick, she would have done. Which also makes Kuvira more villainous again. We're adding to that, because obviously that's a crappy move, right? You know, that's a very egotistical thing to do. And again, it demonstrates character for Kuvira that, maybe this started as a noble endeavor to unite the Earth Kingdom. But, now the power has sort of gone to her head. Ego is ruling. She's enjoying herself a little too much, maybe. So I like that element of it, that because even when Korra was just throwing reasonably sufficient moves at her, and Kuvira wasn't really, she was just lightly dodging them every time. It felt like a lot of I read it as she was being toyed with. And that actually, if Kuvira really
that's
wanted
fair.
to, she could have smashed Korra in a minute, which would have saved me a lot of frustration watching the episode. But again, the ultimate villain, Kuvira, she's even working on a meta level to annoy me. What else? Oh, I did write down the line. What was it? Milo was like, "You can't have enough of Milo," or something. What was it? It was what was the line? "You can't handle all this, Milo."
Yeah.
This is amazing.
That was good. Yeah.
That
was good.
I liked that. The Varric thing, one thing I wanted to add, actually, by the way, very quickly. I liked that we re-established this week that the reason he initially started toying with the spirit vines was for a clean energy source. Because, again, we're showing Varric has grown quite a lot, because, actually...
yes, I caught that. I thought that exact same thing, yeah.
Yeah, because that's he could and probably would have monetized that, but no doubt that would have massively helped the world at large. So
I thought that showed real growth, and I like that. To be honest with you, that's the Varric story I want them to do this year. Do you know what I mean? Mm-hmm. He has grown, he has changed.
Yeah, I'm on board with it. I'm on board with Varric. Let's see. Yeah, I think we've covered it. Is there anything else from this episode we've not covered? No, I'm looking through my notes. I don't see anything we haven't already covered.
Well, in that case, Dan, let's triv it up.
How about give you some trivia? So there's only a little bit of trivia for this episode. Not a huge amount. Not sure why. There isn't. The banners adorning Zaofu following its fall to the Earth Empire read, "May Kuvira live for 10,000 years." That is a phrase that is often said in reference to the Emperor in ancient China.
There you go.
And I'm
may not be much of it, but it's good triv.
Yeah. Well, yeah. There's a little bit more, but what is that? I'm trying to find out what the actual text is. Google Translate, detect language, because I've got the text here. Yeah, so it is Chinese. Okay, fine. So yeah, so they've written it in Chinese characters as well in the show on the banners. So yeah, it's a little reference to ancient China. Varric stating that Julie's name will become synonymous with betrayal is similar to how the name Judas became synonymous with traitor in many languages and cultures. Sure. That's good triv. And then the final piece of triv, and I really mean that, that's how thin the triv is this week. This is the second time seismic sense has been used while a character is wearing footwear. The first was in the Terror Within episode from last year. That was Lin, and this is Su Yin doing it. So both Toph's daughters can sort of, use their earthbending to detect through the ground to see stuff. But this is the the second time we're seeing it with shoes on. To
be fair, I did think that was a cool visual. I did like that.
Yeah, I think the only reason, because I'm totally willing to buy, bending they've just gotten better at it since Toph's childhood, right? Like metal bending and like earth bending has come a long way, and if you really can master that seeing through earth bending that Toph used to do, there's a level to it where you can even do it with your shoes on, because Toph had to be barefoot to do that. The only problem, and the only reason I'm not sure about that is, and I'd have to go back to check, I'm fairly sure in season 1 we saw Lin Beifong do it by removing the bottom of her shoe. Like she's wearing like a metal boot, and I'm sure it's like slid back so that her actual foot could be touching the ground. And then she did it to find the secret bunker underground where Asami's dad was building his death robots. I'd have to double check. Comments below
I can't remember
how correct or wrong I am. Yeah. But if I'm right, if my memory of that is correct, and human memory is notoriously unreliable, but if my memory of that is correct, I think what bothers me more is we've established the need for feet to be touching the ground just a couple of years earlier, and I'm less willing to buy it's evolved that much in that span of time than just over the 70, 80 years of, between Avatar and this. Does that make sense?
Yeah, no, it does.
So, yeah. Just a small thing. Doesn't really matter. These sort of details don't. But if anyone remembers that scene, I don't have the ability to pull it up in front of me right now, but I'd be curious to see if I'm right or wrong about whether she did expose her foot to do it in that episode or not.
Yeah.
I'm sure.
Comment below.
You know who we should ask? We should just ask Quentin Tarantino. He'd know.
Have you got a direct line? Well, you can't speak to him normally, but if it's a foot related question, you've got direct access to him.
Yeah, he has so I don't have his phone number, but I've got him on WhatsApp, and he has a filter set up. If I send him a message that doesn't use the word foot, he just doesn't see it. Foot or feet or something related.
I think you're going to say he had a bat phone style phone, but it was the shape of a foot.
Yeah, exactly. That's exactly. I mean, you say it like a joke. That's exactly what it is. Look, it's never not going to be weird to me that Quentin Tarantino wrote a script in which Selma Hayek pours a booze down her leg, through her foot into a guy's mouth, and then he cast himself as the guy. He wrote that scene. Then he cast himself as that character. I'm never gonna let that go. It's weird. I no. Stop it. You absolute freak.
That's fair. Should we do listener feedback?
Yeah, let's do some listener feedback.
Responding to listener feedback we didn't get a chance to respond to previously.
Hi everyone, it's Dan and welcome to feedback from last series. As Chris just explained, this is feedback we got last series. Because we record these on a delay, we don't get to respond to them as the season goes on, so we get to them in the next season. I've got 2 this week just because they're short. They're both quite quick ones. So this is from Laser Natu 0, who noted, because we talked about how there was a little hint last week that the Earth Queen ultimately ate Bosco, the bear, the king's bear. Apparently, the creators confirmed this because this Laser Natu 0 says, on the Earth Queen eating Bosco, the creators confirmed it in the DVD commentary for Season 4, Episode 3. What a monster. I'm so glad she died.
Yeah, that's mad.
Don't eat the bear.
That's some mad shit.
He was a cute little bear in a hat. Why did the queen eat the bear? That's so not cool.
Yeah, that's not cool.
Yeah, I mean, look, she was a villainous character that hated animals. I remember her whole shtick. I'm not like ignorant to the fact that that's obviously by design, like, but still not cool. And then this one I put included because I thought it was funny. We had several moments last series where we joked about like, does anyone actually need the synopsis up top? And we reasoned that ultimately, if someone hasn't seen the show in a while, some of the episodes might be like, without the context or the reminder of what happens in them, might actually be a little hard to follow a discussion about them. We have a response here from I'm just gonna say Chris, because their surname is, I mean, this is public, I guess. It's on one of our YouTube videos, but I'm still just going to say Chris, from a listener called Chris, who says, hello, as a listener here in the future, I'm grateful you did each episode's synopsis. So I just want to include that one to say, I'm glad you appreciated it, Chris. I have several times debated whether it's needed, but I'm glad to have confirmed there are people who benefit from the information.
Yeah, fair play to you, Chris. I struggle with, like, and I know we're not a rewatch podcast as such necessarily, because we're not, creators of the show or whatever. But I struggle with rewatch podcasts unless I'm rewatching the show. So fair play to the people listening to this that aren't also then rewatching the show, because I struggle with that. So yeah, God love you. Fair play.
Yeah. I agree, and I appreciate. I appreciate you getting in touch with that comment. I've got another quick one while we're at it, because those were quicker than I even thought. We got one from Fiendish5, who says, hello and welcome to the comment section. I just need to say this, gents. I needed to say this for a very long time. I love you guys. And it's just a heart and a fire and then a little tongue sticking out emoji. Thank you. Those are the kind of comments we very rarely get to read, because generally speaking, I'll pick one that would lead to a discussion. But since we're doing just a couple of quick comments this week, I thought that'd be a perfect time to get to one like that.
Yeah, man. So yeah, we love you too. Thank you for that. That's awesome.
Yeah, appreciate that. And then I got one last one here very quickly. Since again, this is all taken way quicker than it usually does. This is from Blue QH1RX, who says, I know this is like 3 years late. He is commenting on our Avatar Roku podcast from Analysing Avatar. It's like the 8th episode, maybe. I know this is 3 years late, but Uncle Iroh was not banished. Zuko was banished, and he joined him on his own accord. Loving the podcast, though. Thank you very much for that. I take your point on that. We must have described them as having been both banished when we discussed Avatar Roku as an episode, and not the case.
Yeah, fair play.
But appreciate the feedback.
Well corrected. Yeah, well corrected.
Yeah. I'm not even gonna look that up. I'm gonna blindly assume that Blue QH1RX is correct, because that sounds right, and I trust him.
Yeah. Oh, absolutely. Yeah.
Is my trust some? Oh, I was just gonna say, is my trust somewhat based on the fact that he says he loves the podcast? Maybe.
I think almost definitely, but still valid. I don't mind that.
Yeah, I'm on board with it. Yeah. Apologies, everyone. I'm still a bit sniffly this week, by the way. I'm not as sick as I was the last time we did one of these, but I'm still recovering. So, yay!
Yeah, that's fair. That's fair. Well, you're a champ for powering through, my friend. We appreciate it.
Yeah, I had a lot. I feel bad, actually. I just want to apologize to Chris for this episode, because I think I had a lot to say. This episode really annoyed me, so I think I overtook this podcast more than I even usually do, and that's bad. So I'm sorry.
No, not at all, man. I'd let you. Don't worry. I was asking questions. I was poking the bear. It's all good. It's all good.
Yeah, this episode really bothered me. Do we have any overall thoughts where we're at? Yeah, it's not a great one. I'm hoping that they can recover some of this. It is definitely the first major misstep. There have been some stuff we've had wobbles about, like in this season, but nothing that I've really outright gone, no, that didn't work. It's usually stuff that's like, depending on where we go, that could be a problem. This was a misstep, I think, this episode. It was handled poorly.
Yeah, watching it, I was more sort of like, yeah, it's just a bit meh. And that's fine. I don't have much to say, but listening to your comments and like, oh no, there are definitely flaws in this for sure. I'd agree. And
I genuinely wasn't expecting that. My memory of this season is enjoying it, and I'm hoping they right the ship, because I remember being very satisfied by the ending of this show.
Yeah, I think
so.
I genuinely do. I think they will.
Fingers and toes crossed that doesn't turn out to be incorrect. I'm going to be disappointed.
No, I'd imagine they will. I don't think it's there's nothing disastrous that makes me go, oh, they can't write this ship. Do you know what I mean? So I think that suggests that they probably will. They will write it.
Yeah, absolutely. And it probably doesn't take much to recover from this. It's not like completely, because they've still gotten to the point we wanted them at. I just didn't like how they got there mostly. Because like we said last week, what you kind of want is to have, you want to set up Kuvira as one, this battle, leading us to a bigger battle that they can come back from. I talked about that classic sort of like superhero logic of the villain has to kind of win once first, so the villain's a threat, so that when the hero comes back, you're like, how are they going to beat them? They didn't beat them last time. It creates that sort of tension. So they have technically done that. They've put me in a position where I have sort of gone, how does Korra get out of this one? I just didn't care for the way they did it, and there's a few weird logic things of like how they ended up actually taking the city and, other stuff like that. But that's all pretty specific to this episode and won't matter in the long run. I'll remember that this episode wasn't good, but, like, we got to the destination we were supposed to get to at the end of this episode, I guess, even if the script wasn't great. So, yeah, shrug.
Yeah, I think the only thing is the core of it all, and whether we're going to sort of go backwards on that plot and do it again and all that sort of stuff. But we'll see. Right. Well, I look forward to seeing how that unfolds.
Yeah, and again, that's still up in the air though. It's still like, it's so yeah. This isn't like they've crashed the car. This is like little wobble. Like we maybe hit a pothole like this week, and like the car wobbled a bit, but we're still on track mostly. So yeah, we'll see. Very excited to keep going. I don't even remember what the next episode is called, but I'll pull it up in a minute so I can say it in the outro because that's what I do. But yeah, thanks for everyone for listening. You can get us all the usual places. We're on Patreon, patreon.com/nothingbutstatic. If you'd like to support us with money, with cold hard cash, that gives you access to episodes of this a week ahead of their normal iTunes, Spotify sort of public release. And it also gives you access to our Discord, where you can directly sort of put messages in there for Chris and I can see and respond to. I'm generally fairly active in there because it's not too hard to be active in there at the moment because it's still pretty quiet. From when we had to lock down, people coming in. Also gives you access to the 8 or 9 episodes we did do of our bonus podcast, Nothing But Lyrics, which is super fun, and we are going to definitely get back to. I really enjoyed doing that podcast. We just need to figure out a schedule for that. I've got a slight plan in my mind for that, but that's in the future a little bit. Right now, we're just trying to get through this series of Korra at the moment. It's kind of taking up our schedule. You can get us on YouTube, youtube.com/nothingbutstaticuk, and then you can comment on any of the episodes there because they're posted as podcasts on our YouTube account. You can also get it as, if you have any thoughts, at mail@nothingbutstatic.co.uk. And of course, always go support the wonderful Raphodraws. Raphodraws supplies that brilliant piece of artwork of Appa at Sunset that we use on Spotify and iTunes and all those places. And you can find them and support them at instagram.com/Raphodraws, RAPHODRAWS. They also have a Tumblr, a Twitter, and a YouTube, which you can find if you head over to their launch links, which is launchlinks.io/u/Raphodraws. So that, I think, is all the things.
Yeah, man. You did that very well. I enjoyed that.
Thank you. Appreciate it. Yeah. I was like, I rambled so much this week, I have to at least be succinct with this.
No, I don't think you rambled, honestly. I don't think you did.
Yeah, maybe. It's that sort of like slight sickness haze. You're not 100%, but you're not so ill that you're constantly reminded of it. So like someone like thinks like someone's like not really injured, they just like maybe pulled the muscle slightly, and then they try to do exercise and realize very quickly it was a bad move. Like I feel like I'm a little sicker than I thought I was, so I didn't adjust my approach to compensate for that. Does that make sense? And it just left me a bit grumpy and crotchety about the episode. But that's okay.
No, I think the episode's got fluid. No, but you were never like you backed everything up in terms of how you felt about it, so I wouldn't worry about that.
Yeah, maybe next time I'll have something sugary before we go.
You're not you if you're hungry. You need a Mars bar or something.
Yeah, I'll eat a banana or a donut or something.
I could have eaten. I have a banana actually. I could have eaten a banana before this today. I fucked up there. That was an error. I'm looking at it now. I'm thinking, yeah, I should have eaten that banana.
You need that potassium. Honey, We Shrunk Ourselves taught us that, Dan.
That's true. That's very true. Anyway, thanks everyone for listening. I've been Dan Doolan.
I've been Chris Billingham.
And we'll see you in a week's time when we sit down to review Reunion.